There is a strange rule in the prison. Whenever a prisoner dies, the warden will burn his soles of the feet with fire. After confirming that he is really dead, he will be thrown into the sea at noon. However, all of this was witnessed by the prisoner in the next cell. After the jailer left, he couldn't wait to crawl over, drag the old man's body back to his own room, and cut off his hair, and stick it on the old man's face to disguise him, as if he were sleeping soundly. After arranging everything, he hurried back to the next cell, and dug out the treasure map buried in the wall by the old man. Taking advantage of the jailer's return, he successfully sewed himself into a burlap bag. Next, it all depends on luck. Fortunately, everything went smoothly, but to make sure everything was perfect, the jailer still tied an iron hammer to the bag before throwing it into the sea. Fortunately, Edmund had stolen a small knife, so it was easy for him to cut open the bag. In the end, Edmund escaped from death and was reborn like a phoenix. The reborn Edmund will surely blaze a trail of revenge. When the jailers found something wrong, Edmund had already swum to the shore. Driven by the instinct of survival, he fled into a farmer's house. After having a full meal and finding several pieces of clothing, he couldn't wait to change out of the prison uniform that symbolized humiliation and suffering. When he accidentally looked in the mirror, he was startled by his own reflection. He hadn't looked in the mirror for 14 years. Looking at that haggard and strange face now, he was a little dazed for a moment. He thought of his fiancée not married yet, and his father who was proud of him. If it weren't for the betrayal of a good friend, he would have had a wonderful future. Thinking of this, Edmund hurriedly left. A few days later, relying on a vague memory and simple disguise, he successfully returned to his hometown. Now what he needed most was to find out about his father's whereabouts. However, fate dealt him a heavy blow. His father had passed away a few years ago. Hearing this bad news, Edmund felt as if everything went dark before his eyes. His legs went weak and he almost fell. Driven by the last bit of obsession, he came to his father's grave, and it was only after the priest's introduction that he learned that his father died alone in the winter of 1825. No one mourned for him, because his son Edmund had been buried here for being convicted of treason 14 years ago. After hearing this news, Edmund was both angry and puzzled. He was alive and well in prison. Why did everyone think he was dead? Did the person who framed him never plan to let him out? With all these doubts, Edmund went to his fiancée's home. But what broke his heart was that his former lover had long since married in Paris, and her husband was foreign, and who was most likely to frame him. Just like this, Edmund lost everything. He wandered aimlessly like a zombie on the street. By chance, he saw a guard chasing a thief. Seeing this scene, Edmund's suppressed anger was instantly ignited, so he vented all his dissatisfaction. And to Edmund's surprise, it was this act of kindness that made this thief named Jacopo become his most loyal subordinate. No matter how Edmund drove him away, Jacopo was determined to follow him. On the way to evade the guard, when Edmund learned that he had a ship parked at the dock, he instantly had a plan. He was going to Monte Cristo to look for the legendary treasure, but at this time he didn't fully trust Jacopo, so he learned that there would be a storm on the way, and they must go to Monte Cristo to take shelter. Jacopo didn't suspect anything. After arriving at Monte Cristo, Edmund asked Jacopo to get off the ship and make a fire. He pretended to go up the mountain to survey, but in fact he climbed towards the peak along the valley according to the old man's map. After reaching the top of the mountain, he continued to move forward according to the instructions, but according to the route, Edmund almost searched the whole mountain, but never found any trace of the treasure.